So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where Africa gets divided up again. Now back in the late 19th century, obviously the Berlin Conference happened and the European powers divided up Africa and the entire continent became under European control. Now what would exactly happen if something similar were to happen in present day? So we're going to be having all world powers such as the USA, Russia, China, India, the UK, and France meeting up in one city and dividing up a plan to, well, divide Africa. Now, this video is in no way supposed to glorify what happened to Africa. Colonization as a whole majorly took place in Africa, so that's why I've decided to make it the core area in this video. Anyway, if you guys enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. That really helps me out. And let's go ahead and get started. So here we have the top 10 strongest countries in the world. Now, this is according to Global Firepower 2022. So if you want to know where I got my source, that's where it's from. Now, this is according to their list. I don't 100% agree with it, but it is pretty similar to what I would consider the top 10 strongest countries. So what is this conference going to be called? Well, it's not going to be the Berlin Conference, but it is going to be the Warsaw Conference. Now, obviously, in this conference, there is some tension going on, such as the United States and Russia, USA, China, India, Pakistan. And, not everyone is off to the best terms, but it is still the top 10 strongest countries, and they have all agreed to divide up Africa. And no other country in the world is allowed to attend this conference, therefore they're not allowed to get any land out of this division. And yeah, so let's go ahead and see what these countries decided to take. Alright, so going from strongest to weakest on this list, first up we have the United States, who is allowed to take their first claims. The US decides not to stray too far from home and sticks to Western Africa. So from Western Sahara down to Ghana, we have all of these countries in the crosshairs of the USA. Now, concerning Western Sahara, a lot of people do consider it to be Morocco. Others consider it to be independent. Just for the sake of this video, it is going to be independent. Now, I'm not saying that it is independent. I'm not saying that it's not. Just for the sake of this video and for the sake of entertainment, it is now a country. So anyway, US troops start to move over towards Western Africa, and they're going to start getting some colonies. Once again, this video is not supporting colonization. It is not trying to glorify what is happening here. This is simply just a made-up scenario made for entertainment. So if you feel offended, then I apologize. We have the US Navy surrounding the waters around Africa and sending in some troops. Now we have 7 US landings being made on the west coast of Africa, and this is going to go pretty quickly. First of all, we have the northern divisions making a link up and cutting off Western Sahara and a majority of Mauritania, I pronounced that horribly, from the coast. Down south, we see something similar with these two divisions meeting up in Ghana, and once more over here in Sierra Leone. Down south, we have US troops pushing up and pushing into Ghana. Benin and Togo both surrender. We then see troops move up into Burkina Faso and over across the Ivory Coast. Liberia's coast is sieged, as well as up north. And finally, we have the Gambia and Senegal losing their coasts, as well as Guinea-Bissau. Alright, so now all these countries have lost their coast, and that's pretty much going to do it for them. So we have the US troops just sweeping in and taking out the area. The problem does come with the Sahara Desert though. So they do get into the lush parts of Mali. But when it comes to the actual desert themselves, they decide not to go in and the governments just surrender. All right, so taking a look at Africa here, we have, it's starting to look like the 1900s. But anyway, next up on the strength list is Russia. And Russia makes a decision not to stray too far away from Russia itself. And seeing as Russia's main warm water port is over here in the Black Sea, we have them just going down and claiming over Egypt, Libya, and Sudan. And with this, we actually have Russia going up against one of the strongest countries in Africa, which is Egypt. And to put it lightly, this would probably be a little bit worse than Ukraine for Russia. By the way, we also have Russia claiming Eritrea. I know I didn't say that earlier, but it is a pretty pro-Russian country, so I don't really think it would mind if it were to be annexed. Anyway, with this, we have the Russian Navy making a landing in northern Libya. A landing is made near Tripoli, and another is made near Cairo. The strongest of these are obviously over here near the capital of Egypt. The second strongest is over here near Tripoli, and then this is kind of the weakest. Although we do see this front actually have the most success, so a lot of northern Libya is captured. Eventually, we have Tripoli being captured, and the Russians move around to capture the coast of Libya, which they do so successfully. Over in Egypt, we actually have this front being kicked out, and reinforcements being sent over to Egypt. We actually have Russia making another landing over here near the Sinai Peninsula. From here, they managed to use the canal to their advantage and capture the entire peninsula. Back over in Libya, we see Russian advancements into the desert, while we have troops crossing over into Egypt. Now, Egypt in their current state is probably not too hard to invade because all of the population is just along the Nile River. So from here, we have Russia actually taking the coast of Egypt, capturing Alexandria. They then push down and capture Cairo. Now from here, it's pretty simple. We have the Russians pushing down the coast as well as down the river. And eventually, without any more populated areas, we have both Egypt and Libya surrendering. Now this leaves just Sudan, who gets invaded pretty easily. Eritrea opts to surrender, and with no hope left and probably no chance against the Russian army, we have Sudan surrendering. So here we have another big chunk out of Africa taken. This time Russia gets their claim, so we have a lot of northeastern Africa being stolen. And with this, we go on to our next contender in this draw up, which is China. Now China's claim is also logical. They're just claiming the area that is closest to China. So we have Somalia, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Kenya, and South Sudan. Now the Chinese Navy is a little bit far from home. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that. But they do have to sail all the way from here, down and around into the Strait of Malacca, out through there, over down south of India, and finally over to Somalia. And honestly, they really don't have any other allies in this region other than Pakistan, so I guess they could technically dock up here and then move down. Or maybe use Yemen. I'm not really sure what the Chinese Navy would do. But nonetheless, it is pretty far. But anyway, we actually have Chinese troops landing in Somaliland. And they're landing here because this region is already kind of a breakaway region. So it wouldn't really be hard to get local support. And then obviously landing there would not be difficult at all because they would be welcomed. But anyway, from here they push across and capture Djibouti. And then they start their invasion of Ethiopia. We have the rest of Somalia being taken by the Chinese Navy, while we actually have Ethiopia pushing back against China. Chinese troops push down into Kenya, which actually, just want to share this with you guys real quick. I found out that Kenya is actually a pretty big U.S. ally. I did not know that. We had ties with them, but I didn't know we were like buddies. This is a random fact that I learned. But anyway, we eventually have Kenya collapsing, and a push into South Sudan has started. Now, if you haven't noticed already, the Chinese army is having troubles pushing into Ethiopia. They do make a pretty fair push in, but eventually they just keep getting drawn back out. So finally, we have Ethiopia and China signing white peace. Alright, so here's our updated map of Africa. We have China here claiming over a big piece of the Horn of Africa, other than Ethiopia, which they failed to get. And now we move on to the fourth strongest country in the world, which is India. Now, India's claims are over here in East Africa, and that includes Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, northern Malawi, and northern Zambia. So with this, we have India making their landing on the coast of Tanzania. From here, they capture the coast pretty quickly and push into the country. Now, if you don't know anything about Tanzania, then first of all, it was once a German colony, and second of all, there's a lot of wildlife here. So I'm not really sure how India would fare up against that, but putting that aside and comparing the militaries, India would definitely have the upper hand here. So eventually you have Tanzania falling, we then have Burundi and Rwanda falling, northern Malawi and northern Zambia fall, and then here we have ourselves a problem in this video, because little old China was not happy about losing Ethiopia. They violate the conference and start their invasion of Uganda. Now this really wouldn't be a problem, but India claims all of that, so it is a problem. Eventually we have Indian and Chinese troops meeting at the border, and this is where our big border dispute begins. Alright, so taking a look at this finished off map here, we have India actually getting a pretty small amount of area compared to these other powers, but it would be bigger if China didn't kind of do this thing, and the same could be said for China, I guess, but overall we have India gaining a portion of Africa, and then obviously there's this dispute up here with China. Some things really never change. But anyway, moving on from that, we have our next country up, which is actually Japan. Now Japan is a relatively peaceful country, so I couldn't imagine them trying to divide up Africa. But nonetheless, they do take place in this kind of messed up thing, Eswatini and Lesotho. We also have them getting a claim over southern Mozambique. We also have them getting a claim out of Botswana, and a little bit out of Namibia. You can see that there's a lot of straight lines here, and yeah, like I said, some things never change. But anyway, with this, we have the Japanese Navy, with the assistance of the Americans, believe it or not, making a landing in southern South Africa. Now, South Africa is another one of the strongest countries in Africa, right up there with Egypt. But just moving on ahead and assuming that Japan and America do fine, we have a sweep through the coast, a sweep through Eswatini and Lesotho, eventually a surrender of all the countries. Alright, so looking at Japan's claim here, nothing really special, very straight borders, and literally just southern Africa. And next up, we actually have South Korea. So surprisingly on this list, like I said, we have South Korea, and they are ranked at number 6 in world power. I'm not sure how true that is. I'm not really sure if I agree with that 100%, but South Korea does get a little bit out of Africa. Now, what exactly do they get? Well, they did have to come to a compromise with Pakistan, because both South Korea and Pakistan wanted Mozambique, and the problem with that is, well, they both want it. So taking a look over here at South Korea's claims on Africa, we have half Madagascar, half of Mozambique, half of Zimbabwe, and what remains of Botswana. We also have the Namibian Panhandle, and yeah, let's get right into some imperialism. So South Korea makes a landing in Madagascar and pretty easily takes out the entire country. We then have aid from Japan and using South Africa as a base. We have South Korean troops crossing the border and going into Africa. Eventually, Zimbabwe is split in half, which leads to the fall of Mozambique, and finally the fall of the rest of Africa. Alright, and here we have another division, so Africa is being destroyed once again by outside powers, no surprise there. And I want to say about half the continent has already been eaten up, so we can just go ahead and color in the areas that have been colonized. And yeah, I think that's probably safe to say that's about half, maybe like a third. somewhere in between a third and a half. But anyway, the next strongest country in the world, according to, once again, globalfirepower.com, is France. And France has a history with Northern Africa, and they will be keeping that history. No surprise here, we have France laying claim over Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Niger, as well as Chad. Now, France does have an advantage here, and that is that they really are just right off the coast of Algeria. But the problem for them is these are strong countries up here. Not so strong over here, but pretty strong up here. So using the US territory as a starter point, we have French troops crossing over to Morocco, as well as Niger. We actually have a pretty big French sweep across, which takes over all of northern Niger and Chad, which then eventually leads to the collapse of the two countries. And from here, France has a pretty easy time taking over Algeria and Tunisia, eventually leading to the fall of the countries. Alright, so now we definitely see about half of Africa divided. But anyway, let's go ahead and move right on. Next up, we have the UK. Now, the UK is god tier at colonizing. You know, you can ask 25% of the world and they would all agree that the UK sucks. I mean, it's really good at colonizing. So their claims lie on Nigeria, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, the Central African Republic, the Republic of the Congo, Gabon, and this little exclave of Angola. So anyway, with this, we once again have the US and France helping out their ally and letting them push troops across the border. Nigeria is directly affected at first. We also see a naval landing in the southern area of the country. And with 3 fronts pushing in, we eventually see Nigeria just decide to surrender. With this, British troops push across and into Cameroon. They push down the eastern coast of Africa, and blah blah blah, that whole area just falls. Alright, so now the only countries that remain uncolonized are the following. And, well, Brazil is right across the ocean, so we can imagine how this is going to go. And then, of course, we have Pakistan still getting their claims. Speaking of Pakistan, we have them up next. So once again, we had that little treaty with South Korea, meaning that Pakistan would get the rest of what South Korea wanted. They basically just divided up the area that they wanted, and overall, that entire area would look something like this. And then once again, backtracking on what I said, they both wanted this, couldn't decide on who and how they would divide it up, so they just came up with this compromise. Pretty fairly split equal. I think Pakistan has a little bit more than South Korea. But seeing as South Korea is super far away, I don't really think they mind that much. So anyway, we have Pakistan making their landing in northern Madagascar and eventually taking out the entire country. They don't really have any allies over here, so they do have to naval invade, which goes pretty fine for them, seeing as Mozambique lost half of their country. And Pakistan starts to sweep through, as these countries have all pretty much been divided in half. Actually, they all have been divided in half. But Pakistan pushes through nonetheless. Now, ironically, we have another little border dispute on the uprising, as India decides to go to war with the remainder of Malawi and the remainder of Zambia. Once again, violating the Warsaw Conference, we have Indian troops pushing across into Malawi and Zambia. Now, this doesn't go all too well for India, seeing as Pakistan had already been sweeping through, which means that they have the ability just to simply cut India off. And with this, we have Pakistan getting a majority of their colonies. Alright, so here is Pakistan's territory, and you can see that India, China, and Pakistan have a lot of border disputes. It's almost like they kind of have that in real life, but no, this is a fictional scenario. There's no way. And finally, leading off this video, we have the final country getting their, I guess, the last bit of Africa, and that's Brazil. So Brazil pretty much lays claim to the final remaining lands of Africa. Mostly we have Namibia and Angola, and then of course we have the DRC. But there is a little bit of a catch to this, and that is that the British and the Brazilians have opted to kind of split up the DRC in a way in which would benefit both. Now, originally, we actually had China, India, and Pakistan in on this deal as well, but since they all have violated the agreement, they're not allowed to participate anymore. Now, theoretically, there actually isn't anything stopping them, but let's just go ahead and assume that they don't do anything anyway. So we have the British pushing into the Congo, and the Brazilians pushing up from the Japanese colony. We also have a naval landing off the coast of Angola, and this is pretty much going to go how the other ones went. The countries just fall pretty quickly. There is a little bit of a struggle in the Congo, though, because this area is, well, I mean, it's the Congo. What do you expect from a name like that? But nevertheless, we eventually have the imperial powers coming out on top and taking over all of Africa. That is almost all of Africa. And there we go. Yeah, Africa's been divided up again. This is obviously never a good thing for a country to be invaded, but yeah, the world kind of had its ways once again. And then there's just Britain. But yeah, we have the United States, France, Russia, China, India, Pakistan, South Korea, Japan, Brazil, and then the UK, all having land in Africa. And once again, we have one country remaining. It's almost as if this country is kind of impossible to invade or something. So yeah, that is going to do it for this video. It was an interesting one. It was definitely different from what I usually do. It's kind of a new, I don't know, it's different, and I kind of liked it. So, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you guys have any unique ideas that you think would be cool for videos, make sure to leave those ideas in the comments. I'm always looking for new ideas, and of course, I'm always running out of ideas, so ideas are really helpful. Once again, thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.